This is the Ancient Texan. Uh, this podcast is for my grandson. He's 4 months old now, but when he's 10 or 30 or whatever and wants to know a little bit about me, right now he thinks the most interesting thing about me is I wear a cap a lot of times. I'm going to talk to him about a hero I know, my Uncle Floyd. Heroes come in a lot of different sizes and shapes. My Uncle Floyd and Aunt Minnie were kind of like my grandparents, Elijah. I probably won't get to have much influence on your life except through Alicia and my kids and their values because I'm already an old dude and you're pretty young. But maybe I can tell you a few stories and you get to thinking about life, how I saw it. Uncle Floyd and Aunt Minnie, they were always old. I think he worked for a glass company, putting glasses into big buildings. He was a foreman or something. So that's kind of one of my earlier memories. We lived in my mom and dad and my brother and I lived in a 600 square foot house in El Paso, a small lot. My dad grew trees and flowers and fruit trees and was a mechanic. But we'll go into my dad more. This is about Uncle Floyd and Aunt Minnie. They were always old. They'd take us to Yellowstone and see the Mississippi. And one summer they took us to see the Binghams. Nancy Bingham had a horse, and I don't know. I think I was 13. I was madly in love. Wanted to go back there the next summer, except they didn't invite me because I was a little contrary. Just took my brother that year. Well, my Aunt Minnie and Uncle Floyd uh, fussed at each other a lot, and they said a lot of the words that wasn't allowed in my house. Take us on a trip. My Uncle Floyd would leave from El Paso, and then we would drive all night long and go to Texarkana. And my brother and I'd be in the back seat, and my Aunt Minnie would be shotgun, and Uncle Floyd would be passing the driver. Every once in a while, he'd take his right front tire off the road, and we would all bounce around in the car, and it'd make a lot of racket. My Aunt Minnie would wake up hollering and cussing at him. And he would listen to her for a while, and then he'd say, "Oh, shut up." And she would. Kind of like she swore at him, and he said, I'm awake now. She'd be upset that he did that. It scared her. Well, when they got older, I guess my Uncle Floyd was in his 80s, and he was still putting roofs on people's houses, was pretty amazing. But he told me his heart was bad. He'd given me a watch, kind of my my inheritance. He also gave me a lot in El Paso that I still own or own at the time of this thing. It's probably worth a few $100 by now. So they weren't rich people. They had like an 800 square foot house. It was big compared to ours. And they always had newer cars. We had one car, 1953 Chevy that was black originally, and then later was painted blue. My dad kept it in good shape because he was a mechanic. But when my Aunt Minnie and Uncle Floyd were in the 80s, my Uncle Floyd got up, drove all night, drove to Marshall, Texas. That's 700 miles away from El Paso. They got there, went to bed, My Aunt Minnie woke up and she raised herself up on her elbow, and her bone cracked from her elbow up to her shoulder. Uncle Floyd got up, hadn't been to sleep yet. Just had a 15-hour drive to Marshall. He drove up to Texarkana, which is another 400 miles, another 8 hours. Took her to hospitals all day long, trying to find someone to help her. They told her, you need to take Aunt Minnie back to El Paso. So he hopped in the car, drove 3 days without sleeping. Took Aunt Minnie to the doctor. I'm sure she slept in the car on the way, probably with a lot of pain. Took my Aunt Minnie to the doctor, got her fixed up, got her back home. Went to the bathroom, had a heart attack. Taking care of his Aunt Min. 3 days without sleep when you're in the 80s, driving 2-lane roads and freeways more than twice across the state of Texas, or across Texas and back, although with a pretty major detour going to Marshall, Texas. Marshall, Texas is where my Uncle Rufus and my Aunt Minnie, another Aunt Minnie, lived, and Okie Faye. I'll tell you a quick story about Okie Faye. We went to my grandma's funeral, Texarkana. My mom woke us up one morning and told us she's going to get a call. And she got us in the bath. Well, it was her mom dying, so Uncle Floyd and Aunt Minnie took us to Texarkana. I don't think it was Texarkana. Probably maybe is Marshall. Somewhere on the other side of Texas. I was, like 4 or 5 years old. They didn't let us go to the funeral. They left us with Okie Faye. I took my brother and decided that we'd escape. So we took off running, gonna run away from home. Except my brother slowed me down, enabled Okie Faye to catch me just a few blocks away from home. Anyway, my main story, Elijah, is about heroes coming all shapes and sizes. And it's about doing what you think needs to be done. Your mom raising you on her own is probably going to turn out to be a hero. Uncle Floyd did all that driving to take care of his wife. Killed him. Too much driving, no sleep. Anyway, that's one of your heroes in the past. I'll tell you some stories about my dad and mom too. They did a lot of amazing stuff. That'd be your great grandparents. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan, otherwise known as Grandpa. Obviously, anybody else is welcome to listen to this, but podcast is for Elisha. When he grows up, cares about his grandpa and the ones that have gone before. Have a good one. Namaste.